Another conversation has been going for so long, but it's with a dear friend of mine from about 1,000 years ago, and a dear producer here at MNN. That's Alan Steinfeld. He's got the program New Realities. He's interested in all things spiritual, and he's a guest, and he's a friend from way back when, and he's going to let us know about a conference that's coming up among the people that are in that realm of thinking and consideration. And Alan, so good to have you on the set again.
It is always great to be back with the godfather of public access, Harold Channer. Really, you have the longest I guess people don't know how long you've been in this business, but you are a model, a role model for many people who want to get alternative ideas out there. And that's one of the reasons I came to Manhattan.
Is it truly? Yeah. Well, tell me. Let's begin and ask. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, but I grew up on the South Shore of Long Island, which was a beautiful little suburban.
South Shore of Long Island has some really nice places.
Well, it wasn't out in Suffolk County. It was Nassau County.
Okay, yeah.
But still, it was quite a nice little suburban community.
Happy background and everything like that.
It was pretty happy, yes.
Family good.
My parents weren't divorced. They seemed to be a very happy couple.
Are you still in touch with the family?
I am in touch with the family. My brothers have a computer business. I'm doing my own thing. My mother lives in Florida. And I was brought up pretty, mainstream. I had no exposure to any alternative ideas. The first thing I ever saw that made me think what I was seeing on mainstream television wasn't everything was WBAI.
Yeah, you're right.
Suddenly,
that was
radio. I found radio because I couldn't sleep at night too much, and I would listen to different radio stations. I came across BAI, and suddenly they were telling me things I wasn't hearing on WABC, NBC, CBS. There was another way of looking at reality.
And you were interested in human affairs and things beyond just the
I was interested in psychology. I wasn't even interested in media.
Would you count yourself an intellectual? I would. You're an intellectual, right? Some people think that's a dirty word.
No, I don't think it is at all. Ken Wilber says there's a lot of people
Ken Wilber's great. Yeah.
Ken Wilber actually says there's a lot of enjoyment that comes from intellectual understanding.
Yeah, right.
And I agree. I do enjoy using the intellect. The problem is people get stuck in that, and I think we have to use both sides of our brain. We have to use the intuitive, and we have to use the intellectual, and combine them together. If you're just intellectual, you lose your feeling sense. But if you're just feeling sense, you can't get from A to B. So we need to be whole brain creatures, and this is what I discovered in my search for other possibilities. So BAI, which is still on, which you can contribute to BAI, it always needs help.
I think they're having some trouble,
They're always having trouble, but I think people...
They used to be right on the corner where we lived, on 8th Avenue.
Yes, but I think alternative media, not what Trump is saying, fake news, but I think alternative. I know, it's awful. It's awful. What he's saying about the news. There are
dangerous.
There are people like Alex Jones generating fake news, though.
Alex Jones is fake news.
He's total fake news, in my opinion. He may say a few interesting things. So we have to ride that territory between the what they said in the Odyssey, between the rock and the whirlpool.
I don't know that. What is a rock and a whirlpool?
The whirlpool and the rock. Well, the rock would be that's the navigation between the two extremes. Okay. So we have to navigate between the straight-on intellectual understanding that this is the way it is, which would be a kind of understanding of the solidity of things, and the whirlpool, which means anything anyone says could be true. So it's navigating our sense of awareness and judging for ourselves what is true for us and what is not true. We just can't take what anyone says and think that's true.
Do you think such a thing is an objective truth?
I don't think there's an objective truth, but I think reality is consensus. And I think
spell it out,
I think in terms of facts, like we know we're sitting here. Of course, a metaphysician might say, no, you just think you're sitting here. But there is an objective awareness we can agree on. Maybe you can't call it objective. You can call it where we sync our subjective realities together. And that's all reality is a subjective agreement to what is. But we can agree that we both witness the same phenomena, right? We can agree that things happen. You see it one way, I see it a different way, but we can agree on the thing that happened. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. I just wonder, there's some differentiation in the way we interpret things.
And interpretation is everything, but the reality, what we know of the world can be agreed upon.
Your program's called New Reality.
It is, because
what about old reality?
Old realities is what happened yesterday. The new reality is what's behind us right here.
Wait a minute. What's behind us?
You see what's behind us?
Oh, I hadn't noticed. Yeah,
that's
right.
The new reality, that we are moving into a new level of awakening. You see?
Well, that is something else.
That we're connected to a bigger picture of galactic awareness. This is what I'm trying to say to you, Harold. I know it's beyond your sense of cultural literacy.
No, not at all.
It's not?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's a premise of something like a universal mind or something
Universal
that
mind.
I have awareness of, but I don't, but I have differences about where we are in relationship to it.
Do you know there are more stars in the sky than all the grains of sand on all the beaches in the world? That's trillions and trillions of stars. Each star they're seeing has a set of planets. We are not the only life in the universe. That would be absurd.
Well, wait a minute. The life, I don't know that we know. We don't have any firm evidence of that.
Not yet we do, although some people claim, yes, we've been visited. I claim that.
Yeah.
I do a conference
I
do a conference every year called Contact in the Desert, where people come from all over the world.
What do you mean contact? You mean
Contact in the Desert's out
Nazca lines and stuff?
No, it's out in Joshua Tree. There used to be large UFO gatherings at a place called Giant Rock out there.
What is a UFO?
Unidentified flying object. Now it's called unidentified aerial phenomena. This is what Hillary Clinton wanted to bring into the public awareness. So,
really?
Because UFOs have gotten a bad name because everyone thinks alien, everyone thinks invasion. No. We can agree there's phenomena in the sky and we don't know what it is. The government has come out with there's just been a press conference actually just this week called To the Stars, where former CIA director, former Skuntworks, you know the Skuntworks, they make the jet propulsion.
Yeah, but I forget.
They just, DOT, Department of Defense people have come forward and say, guess what? We've seen things in the sky that we cannot explain. Where they're from, they didn't say. I happen to think they're not from here because we do not have the technology to go at incredible speeds and stop. We're still using 19th century, 20th century technology to run our cars. Gasoline, how these objects fly they're not filling up their gas tank to get here. There's another sense. Some people call it warp drive. That's what they called it in Star Trek. Yeah. But there's ways of, I've talked to Hal Puthoff about this, and he was on this press conference, and he says, time and space is malleable. Hal Puthoff from
What's his name? Puthoff?
Puthoff. He started the remote viewing program for the CIA, teaching people how to psychically use their brains to spy on the Russians. This was in the 1980s at the Stanford Research Institute. Now he's part of this To the Stars conference. He's been working on free energy machines. Hal Puthoff is really a key player in understanding advancements.
How long has he been on the scene? I don't know that name.
He's been on the scene since the 1980s. Look up Stanford Research Institute. He started working with the CIA. Since then, him and Russell Targ developed the remote viewing program along with Ingo Swann in the 1980s. Remote viewing, you know what that is?
No, I don't. No. Well, I'm learning here. Yeah.
No, it's good. I'm glad you're open. Remote viewing is the sense that you can use your mind to actually see where things are that are not present. So it's a kind of psychic awareness. It means there are great intuitives out there. The best was a guy named Ingo Swann who lived downtown, right around the corner from me on the Bowery. And he actually coined the term remote viewing. So they would bring him into a laboratory, and then they say to him, can you see what's happening in the next room? So he'd empty it, and I actually teach a course in remote viewing.
Do you?
You empty your mind, and you let the impressions of what you might feel is happening in that other room to come to you.
Yeah.
Now, the big thing is separating the noise from the signal. You know what I mean by noise and signal?
I do know, but I can't remember
in
where
this,
that
in this
signal to noise ratio.
Right, but in this understanding of remote viewing, separating the noise from the signal means the noise is what you think is out there, what I would think is in the next room. Oh, I think they have cameras or this and that. But the signal is when you can get your mind empty enough and you say, okay, let an image come to me. And people do incredibly well in the classes I teach, and I teach to women on the Upper East Side. I teach an adult education course on consciousness. These women, when they can clear their mind, these Upper East Side women, don't know anything about consciousness, anything like that, they are incredibly accurate because anyone is able to get in touch with the signal that what Russell Targ called the psychic signal that would be coming from the other room or around the world or in some Army, Air Force base or in Russia somewhere. It means the implications of this means that your consciousness is not local. It means who you are is not confined to your brain. And many people are claiming this as their truth because they've had near-death experience when they've been brain dead. Eben Alexander and Nita Mojani. Thousands of people have had near-death experiences, yet they have a level of awareness. So you can explain that by understanding that who you are, your thoughts, are not confined to this local unit. Your brain is a sender and receiver of thoughts, of consciousness. This is an avatar. Who you really are, Harold Channer, is not contained in that body. It is in the field. It is in the universal, let's say, milieu of consciousness itself. Does that make sense?
It's all very hard for me to understand a lot of that.
It is, because what I'm trying to say is that we need to develop a new form of cultural literacy. We need to include...
Cultural literacy.
Cultural literacy means that our culture is evolving to understand terms in a more open-minded way. Let's put it that way. So the idea that consciousness is not local, right? It's not contained to... I'll explain it this way. You have a computer, right?
Yeah, everybody does now.
Okay, the computer is the hardware. The computer is your brain, right? You have something that the computer plugs into, the energy, the electricity. That's the energy running into your body through the computer. Now, what is it that makes a computer work? This is an interesting question for anyone listening. So you have the hardware, you have the software, you have the electricity. You need one other thing to make a computer work. And you know what that is?
Programming? Or I don't know.
Programming. What else you need? It'll just sit there unless something happens. It'll just sit there.
Data? I don't know.
No. What we're looking for is an operator. That's right, our technician guy. You need an operator. Do you see what I mean?
No.
If your body is the hardware, and the energy and your personality is the software, what makes this body work is consciousness. What makes a computer work is the operator of the computer. Otherwise, it just sits there, right?
I guess that's true on the computer analogy.
Well, that's the analogy I'm using to who we are. Unless we have consciousness, the body is a no thing. You need somebody or something in that body, not just the energy. I know this goes against your kind of intellectual. You're the intellectual here, really. Your intellectual understanding that all there is what's here. I'm saying consciousness, it means that there's more to reality than we've been told.
Oh.
Does that make sense to you?
Well, that makes sense. That would be like synergy or something. You'd have a
more than
synergistic...
synergy.
There's something more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, and that's us. Yeah. I wouldn't even look at it in that type of way of framing it. I would just say who you are, Harold, who you were from the time you were little to the time you are now, 82 years old. Congratulations.
Yeah, right.
is actually the same. Your body has changed. Even your mind has changed.
Yeah.
But the eternal essence that you are has not changed. Did you get that?
No, I don't. I don't understand. I was born,
You were born, but you're the that sense of self is the same, wouldn't you say?
Oh,
this continuity
is that like
of
an identity? No, not
yeah,
identity.
I would say it's
Psychiatrists talk about identity.
I would call it
identity politics are coming really
I
important.
would call it a continuity of being. Does that make sense?
Well, I don't understand that.
Who you are.
Yeah.
It's not your body because your body has changed, right? If you were your body, then it wouldn't change. I mean, you'd just be this one thing. And you're not your personality because your personality changed. Who you are is a continuity of consciousness. Does that make sense at all?
Well, not really. I don't quite understand. I'm a person that was born into a material world. Yeah.
Right. You're a person.
I can understand evolution and all that. And
evolution
science,
is the hardware. You're not talking about hardware. We're talking about the essence that goes into the hardware. So let me try to put it.
You're trying to get things like soul and things
soul,
like that.
Yes. You can call it soul.
See, I'm not a religious person.
I'm not calling it religious.
Yeah, okay.
Soul is
let's rule out religion.
We're not talking about religion at all. We're talking about the eternal essence of being, the fundamental ground of being, consciousness.
Yeah, those are words I don't understand.
Okay, I'm trying to explain it to you.
I don't.
No, because it's outside your cultural literacy, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with it.
Can you use words where it can be understood?
Okay, so I would say you don't understand the concept of soul because you're not used to those concepts. Is that clear?
There's a lot of people who believe in the idea of soul. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
and it's
the basis of a lot of what we call religions.
It is the basis of a religion.
And I usually don't pay much attention to any of that.
I'm not looking at it in a religious way.
I'm a secularist, you know.
I'm a secularist too because I'm not talking about a dogmatic religion. I'm talking about something which is beyond religion, which defines religion itself.
Well,
I'm talking about you could call it soul if I say an eternal essence. That might seem like a soul.
Well, I'm willing to, and I'm a thinker and everything.
No, I'm a thinker too.
I'm willing to accept the notion of a thing that there may be something called there is this premise that's been put forth.
What premise is that?
Well, a premise against the factual fact that we are understanding things, at least since the Enlightenment and so forth, we're beginning to understand things in an intellectual way and everything.
Intellect is great.
I can expect some sort of understanding and acceptance of the possibility, maybe, of something called like a universal mind or something. I can do it.
Well, okay, if you can go to
I
the
can do that.
if you can do that,
I can do.
Okay, I'll go there with you. I'll go to the universal mind.
It's a possible.
I'll just go there. Let's suppose there's a universal mind, whatever you want to call it.
Something that you can
and then I think, though, we are an aspect of that universal mind.
Well,
would you accept that?
No, I'm just accepting the possibility that such might exist.
Okay, let's say there's universal mind. Would you
line.
consider the possibility that we could be a fractal of that universal mind?
Well, No, I don't want to go any further than accepting that it might
if there's a universal mind, are we a part of that universal mind?
No,
or is that separate from us?
You're saying there is. I said there might possibly be.
Okay, let's keep going
like
into the consideration.
That's all, yeah.
So if there might be could that also might be that we could be...
It's not factual.
No, we're just playing here.
It's not accepted.
We're just playing.
It's just something that could
possibly be. We're playing with hypothesis.
And then you could deal with the reality in terms that might possibly relate to that.
Okay, so if there might possibly, we're just playing. No, I don't know for sure about any of this stuff I'm saying.
You're making it sound sure.
No, I believe.
I don't want to have any of that.
I believe, but belief means nothing. You know why belief means nothing? Because it's completely conjecture. Do I know? No, but we all have belief systems.
Well, now we're talking something that makes sense, and you can bring it back to science and understanding in a normal way.
Science, so is also a belief system on some level.
Yeah.
Science is also a belief system. Do you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know that they would not believe that rocks fell from the sky when someone came off and said, I think there's rocks? They said that's impossible.
Rocks there's meteors.
But they didn't know that until 1890. Before that, when someone said, I think I saw a rock fall from the sky, they thought he was crazy.
That's understanding of evolution in a normal sense.
Evolution of our intellectual background.
Well, part of a whole evolutionary evolutionary process. That,
well,
or no,
intellectual evolution.
No, we go back the beginning of a universe.
No, but I'm talking about evolution of ideas, though.
I'm willing to accept a priori mystery.
What's that mean to you?
Well, the existence of everything is synergetic. It's behaviors of system.
I don't know what that means.
The synergy's behavior system unpredicted by the sum of its parts.
Right.
There's something more.
Yeah, I'm not going there because I'm going to the three hard questions of science. You know what they are?
Well, what are they?
The three hard questions of science that they.
And I'm not limited to science.
No, but let's talk about science. The three hard questions of science are, and they've looked for years, hundreds of years. I mean, at least in the last 20 centuries. How did the universe begin?
Yeah,
no one has come up with a
biggie.
No one has answered that. I'm not saying I have the answer. The second hard question is, how did life begin? They have all these molecules, they have spark, but they have not been able to create organic life.
Pretty close.
Yeah, but they haven't been able to create evolutionary organic life.
They got a lot closer to it than Cro-Magnon
People have gotten very close. We've gotten a fraction of a second after the Big Bang, but
that's true, isn't it?
No one has understood how did that implosion and explosion happen.
Yeah, right.
The third hard question is, how did intelligent life begin? How did those chemicals in that neurobiology come to understand what we call the world?
Yeah.
They can't explain that. William James goes. It
can be dealt with in terms that are just objective.
They can't be dealt with in objective. They can't be dealt with objective because they have not come up with an answer. So I've looked for alternatives.
No, not if you're an adherent to synergy.
No, synergy doesn't say anything.
There's something more than the sum of the parts.
That means nothing. Something more than the sum of the parts. It says nothing. That's an explanation for why things are. It doesn't say how they are. You're just giving me a label of that. A synergy means absolutely nothing in my book. Okay. I mean, it's an excuse.
Yeah, we see things differently. Yeah.
No, we don't see. I mean, I think we could come to an agreement. Just because you consider the possibility that there could be a great mind out there, a greater mind, let's say.
Well, that's something you can relate to. No, I don't.
I like science, except that we have to look at science.
All these things that came up with these explanations about what this, that, and everything were things that people came up to in a situation of ignorance. They had to come up with something in order because they had a consciousness.
They stick to that ignorance. You know what Thomas Kuhn said?
Paradigms.
Yeah, the
he
paradigm.
developed the idea of a paradigm.
Exactly. Revolution and scientific thought. He developed the idea of paradigms, and he said science progresses.
Like systems thinking. Yeah.
He says science progresses one funeral at a time.
Well, that's interesting.
Because scientists get attached to an idea and they stick with that idea, and so even if you say
good scientists won't be.
Well, you show me one that doesn't get attached to an idea.
Well, I don't know what you mean. Use these words.
I say most scientists develop a theory and they get stuck on that theory and they won't look at a bigger picture. It's been the history of science like that.
On the contrary, I don't think that's true
Well,
at all.
You get someone coming along like Bruce Lipton talking about
I did a program with him.
He's a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
He's a leading edge of a new science that combines spirituality.
No, I'm sorry. I was thinking of Thomas.
Thomas?
Lewis Thomas.
He's good too.
Lewis Thomas was fantastic.
I like Lewis Thomas.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are in that realm.
So there's a mystery going on that
a
science...
A priori mystery. Yeah, I think a priori...
And we're a part of that a priori mystery.
A priori mystery is a very good thing to assume.
That has not gone away.
Mystery, not certainty.
Right.
Yeah.
The science says
so
it's certain.
Don't declare these things as nouns. They're verbs.
I am not saying any of this is for sure. I'm just telling you what my belief system is.
Yeah, right.
Your belief system is that it's all natural. It's all going to be discovered.
It's not at all.
If we have intellectual understanding.
No, on the contrary. I don't use all. I'm very synergetic and of a means
synergetic doesn't explain anything to me. What does that mean? That systems, yes. Go ahead. Say that again.
Well,
synergy.
You talk very fast, like a
let's take it
three-card Monte.
No,
player.
Let's break it. No, let's break it down.
Tell you what I'm going to do.
No, Harold, I don't want to come off that way. Let's break it down.
But people listening to the program, it sounds like
I don't think so.
Like a barker.
It's making a lot of sense to your director there.
So
let's break it down. Let's break it down then, okay?
Yeah.
Let's start with synergy. Can you define synergy again?
Well, only that its behavior system unpredicted by the sum of the parts.
Okay, so let's break that.
And you could add, perhaps, if you want, maximally engaged.
Okay, so let me understand
because systems have a way of changing from being a priori to fulfilled.
So let me see if I understand what you're saying.
And I apply that to the human condition.
So let me see if I understand what you're saying. You're saying when things come together, when different elements come together, create a new system. Wait, let me just finish.
All right.
It creates a new order that is not defined by the parts, but there's a new phenomena that is possible.
Well, yeah, I think
is that what you're saying?
I think it's pretty clear in terms of it's been hard won, all of our knowledge of what, and people, you know, a few thousand years ago, they weren't able to have any thought about anything real. I mean, they had
I think they were.
They could intuit things, they could have dreams and things like that. But they didn't have any knowledge of what was going on, or the
what do we have?
What
do we have knowledge of now that you're claiming is knowledge?
Well, I think Einstein and that they came up with a pretty good understanding of how the dimensions of the universe
Einstein
and some sort of a time scale for when it happens. We got it down to a nanosecond of when the universe started.
No, but they can't
measure it.
They can't get back to that 0 point, though.
Well, the 0 point. Well, all right, now that's something.
And no one else can. And Einstein is.
Well, what are you're trying to get some answers?
No, I'm looking for alternatives. I'm looking for alternative possibilities.
They had for a long time things like God.
I don't use
that
word.
In God.
I don't know what that means. That word has been so misused that I don't think people should even use it. What I'm using is...
Or truth.
Truth is a word. What about the eternal nature of our being?
I don't know what that means.
I'm saying who you are could
eternal.
Be... Okay, eternal.
Oh, that's assuming something eternal.
I'm saying who you are, Harold, could be, and I'm not saying it's true. Just listen to me.
Well, then
I'm saying it's possible that
who
we are...
If you want to go into the extremes of possibility on the extreme, then you can almost say anything you want.
You certainly
you can. Say anything at all you want.
What does science say, though? That's absolutely true. What's absolutely true to anything.
How about soul?
What does science say about absolute truth? Tell me what science says about absolute truth. Tell me what absolute truth science and your belief states, and I'll see if I agree. Okay, let's start there. Okay.
Well, I'm not sure that that's something that I can quite get to.
Well, give me a truth of
science is too limiting.
Well, you're a scientific person.
No, I'm not.
Well, what do you believe?
I'm not. I'm a generalist.
Well,
I'm
what
a
does that mean?
comprehensivist. I believe in everything.
Well, I'm just giving you something, and you're saying you don't believe in what I'm giving you.
I'm not limited to science.
What is your belief system? Tell me.
There's art. There's intuition.
I agree. So you believe in intuition? How do you explain that?
Of course.
How do you explain it?
It's part of the evolutionary process.
No, that doesn't.
It
doesn't say anything. It says part of it.
13 points. I forget exact the birth of the universe, and then there.
What does intuition mean to you, though? Let's start there. If we're going to start somewhere, tell me. You define intuition, and I'll tell you, and you tell me how it works. So, what is intuition?
Intuition is a way of thinking,
a way of knowing,
a way of perceiving, a way of observing, and.
And where does that come from? Intuition. How do we know a way of seeing?
It's part of a consciousness.
Well, now you're using the word consciousness. You're scaring. What does that mean, consciousness?
I'm not using it in any definitive way.
What is it you have to use? You must have some idea of how you're using it.
To tell you the truth, I don't think about it very much. To tell you the truth, I think about the human condition, and I tend to think about that in a larger order.
Well, let's go back to intuition, because I think that's a bridge point between me and you.
Well, maybe.
So you're saying there's something...
Bucky Fuller used the term. He wrote a book, Intuition.
Bucky Fuller was a very integrated being with a spiritual and intellectual. He was one of the revolutionary thinkers of our time.
I think maybe the most revolutionary thinker in the history of mankind.
He might be, and I'm with you on that.
No, that's really something. Well, that's agreement. But you can agree on Bucky.
I do agree on Bucky. I agree on Marshall McLuhan. I agree on James Joyce. Marshall
McLuhan, yeah.
But no, let's go back to intuition, because let's say, how do you define it, and then I'll define it as well.
I'm not sure I know how to define it.
But you use it, and you think it's a reality, right?
You want this thing called reality.
No, you think it's real. You think some people have it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be using that term.
No, it's a term that's used for things that aren't exacting. There's a different perception.
There's a different perception that is intuitive.
Yeah.
And that's not intellectual. But you don't.
Yeah. I guess maybe you could say that. I guess
right,
I'm not
so
sure.
You're not. That's okay. Not
It's
to be
like
sure. It's okay.
Things that come out of the blue, like
Out of the blue.
Yeah.
But I in my
you define intuition.
I define it as non-local consciousness. I'll define it. I know you don't know what that means.
Local consciousness has to be defined.
Okay, I will define it all.
A person? You mean a person?
No. If there's something called intuition, which means I'll say we can have a sense of a future or an impression of an awareness that's not intellectual. There's another part of our mind, let's call it the right brain possibly.
They do divide it into right and left, yeah.
That is getting that information from a
feeling
sense.
Yeah, feelings, that goes into feelings.
Okay, it's a feeling
like
sense.
Yeah,
so
that all exists. Whales have it.
Everybody has. I mean,
have
every
human beings have it.
Bicameral species has an intuition and
Does it have to be bicameral?
I think a left and right brain.
I think it might go all through the organic process.
I don't know, but there's instinct, which is different. Now, in the more evolved creatures, let's say there's an intuition. Now, I seek to, in my awareness, have sought to, how does intuition work? So I define it or sense that it works by who we are as consciousness, might have a sense because we're greater than our bodies. We have an awareness that's beyond this physical containment. Does that make sense?
Well, I think it does the way you use the words. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, let's break it down to each
there's
term.
there's definitely synergistic relationships between systems and everything like that.
Synergistic relationships really
resonancy then is
so
a term
let's
that's
say
used,
resonancy.
Yeah, right.
Those are really
or intuitions. Yeah, right.
Intuitions is a resonance.
Yeah.
A resonance that is made aware of how.
It's perfectly understandable in terms of evolution.
So
if that's what I'm saying. You don't need anything. A priori mysterious or not?
I think you do, though. If you're talking about intuition, you need something a priori to the physical existence, right?
Well, okay, if you want to think that, okay. Yeah.
I mean, otherwise you just say, oh, there's intuition. I don't know what it is, but I have a feeling, and I'm just trying to further break it down to see where's that feeling coming from.
And that's what you're doing. You got a conference coming up.
And that's what this whole phenomena. This whole, let's call it, it was called the New Age.
It's called New Age too, isn't it?
It was. New Age got a bad word.
Why? Why is that?
Because it started to mean very fluffy, woo-woo, unfounded.
Those are words that occur to me, yeah.
Well, what I call it is human potential.
Okay.
And spiritual.
Yeah.
I mean.
And spiritual, it gets the term.
Spiritual.
And you've had all these religions and everything like that.
Religion is different. Religion is made.
You think it is?
Yes. Religion is dogma.
You know what religio? It
means to reconnect.
No, it doesn't. It seems to me it means to hold.
Well, I'm not talking about religion.
Hold, religio. It's from
I'm
Latin.
Talking about spirituality, which is different.
And it's mostly myths, and they don't.
I'm not talking about religion. Religion is dogma and myths. You're right. I'm talking about the idea of intuition, that we know that there's something more than what we've been told. That's all I'm saying.
There's something more than that's back again to synergy.
Well,
which is
synergy is a very limited way of understanding.
Well, not my way of thinking. It's very crucial. I think it's a behavior system's unpredicted by the sum of its parts.
Unpredicted does not
say anything. There's something more resonating with me more than the sum of the parts. But
you're making it very mechanical in how you're saying.
Yes, science. It's called science. It's called science rather than
science is one aspect. I'm not talking about mechanical.
Well, then you're going to talk about all the kinds of things.
No, I'm talking about conscious.
I have practically no faith in faith.
You just talked about. I'm not talking about faith. I'm talking about consciousness, a sense, an intuition that there could be more than the mechanics that run that body.
Well, it's a matter of words and everything, isn't it?
No, it's a matter of concepts and cultural literacy. This New Life Expo, which happens October 27th to 29th at the New Yorker Hotel. Mark Becker.
Can you do it or not? Can you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, you've done it. She's done it already.
My friend Mark Becker has been running this event for the last 25
They'll
years.
all be there. Scientology there?
No, Scientology
Isn't
is
that
a religion.
part of it?
No,
That's conned a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not talking about things. I'm talking about a philosophy that's open-ended.
Oh, okay.
That's
yeah,
not
that's good. I like that.
That's not
term,
confined. I'm talking about intuition.
Yeah.
Remember the thing that you connected it?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm talking about new technology.
He wrote a book. Fuller wrote a book called Intuition.
Well, why don't you read it and see what he means?
I've read it.
And what did he What did he say about that?
Well, I like everything he's done. He's very scientific.
Can you tell me what he says in Intuition? Or it's been a while.
No, I don't want to.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, there are people who talk about vibration, which might be what you call a resonance, right? And we have the capabilities of human beings to feel each other's vibration.
Are they still talking about crop circles and stuff?
I love crop circles. They're
Yeah.
still happening. You know what a crop circle? How do you explain that?
I don't know. It's in England. They have little patterns that come down.
That's
from
right.
people.
How do you explain that?
I don't. I tell you the truth.
Well,
Yeah,
I
don't.
explain it by this picture behind us.
Okay.
This,
what is that? What
that's
is
a picture of an ET overlooking a spaceship out of outer space. An ET is an extraterrestrial. Means
there was
that
a movie made about that.
Right.
But
those
you don't
are
take
beings
it
that
seriously.
Those are beings, perhaps.
Well,
Harold, I'm not saying it's absolutely true.
No,
I believe
yeah.
there are beings visiting us, and they're making patterns. Not all the patterns.
I think it's fairy tales. That's all.
Well, who's making the patterns in the wheat fields of England?
Well, the people who decide on what's going to be made at Hollywood so you can make a bunch of money.
I don't think people are
Well,
making.
it's a material world we
But
live
Harold,
in.
if you really examine that belief, that's a belief.
Yeah.
You know,
people
you
got
just.
all kinds of crazy beliefs.
I
out
know,
of
and that's
history,
one of them. What
particularly.
you just told me.
What?
That people are making a lot of money by making these circles.
They
in
did. They
England.
made a huge fortune off ET and the
I know,
gullible.
we're talking about crop circles.
This kind of
We're
stuff.
talking about crop circles, and
crop circles. I don't know how to explain that.
well,
That
you
really
don't. I'm
strange.
telling you
All
how
these
I
patterns
explain.
that come up.
I'm telling you how I explain
Yeah,
it.
do.
Extra-
Teach.
Extraterrestrial civilizations are.
Extraterrestrials. Come
Well,
down.
I'm explaining it to you.
Okay, yeah,
That's
okay.
my belief.
Yeah, that's ET. Extraterrestrials.
It may or may not be true.
Okay, right, fair.
Extraterrestrials are probably Earth energies or a higher intelligence is showing us different symbols and
Nazca lines.
patterns in the wheat fields of England in order to expand our cognitive capabilities. That's how I explain it.
Yeah, right, okay.
I mean, these patterns have been. You know who Charles Fort is?
I don't know that name.
Charles
but
Fort
I've
was the
not
first
paid much
paranormal
attention.
investigator of the early 1900s.
Really?
And he would look at old newspaper articles
yeah.
and see that fish have fallen from the sky in certain places, or UFOs have appeared, or different strange anomalous activity. The world is full of magic is really what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Just like the sum of its parts cannot be predicted by the two components, the components that come to it.
Well, that's synergy.
That's magic.
Yeah.
That's magic.
Well, magic, I'm not too.
I'm
fond
just
of
saying magic
yeah.
means that it's beyond our intellectual
Well,
understanding.
you got like a boy and girl in love is something you hard to explain. That's something beyond.
That's
you know,
right.
But that's all.
That's
being able to
magic, isn't
understand. That's not being able to. You know, you're or Fred Astaire and Ginger.
Would you
Rogers.
say love
like, you know,
is?
how the hell they pulled that off? That was a
Well, I'm
feat
trying
of
to explain how they
great,
pulled.
capability,
No, but
physical.
I'm
and
Harold.
mental and
Harold, do you
whatever.
believe that there's life on other planets? Possible?
I have no thought on that.
Well,
no,
if you did have
I
a thought on it, what would you believe?
well,
if you
I
could
would
consider it.
Planets in our.
Other solar systems, other galaxies, other
I
levels.
say that is something that we don't know, but it's not to be.
But what's your
It's
belief?
not to be dismissed a priori.
Do you believe then that it's possible as a
But
possibility?
wait, what are you talking about?
I'm
Our
talking
solar
about
system?
belief. No,
our
the-
solar system, the
Our
universe.
sol-
What
the
are you
universe.
talking
Let's
about?
talk about the universe, okay? Do you believe
Well,
there's
when
other?
you get out to the universe, I guess you have to be. And if you're being in this sort of very, very loose thing of
We're
the
loose.
definition,
We're loose in
you'd
our
have to give it a-
definition.
you'd have to give it a very far distant possibility, but it's something you can consider. Yeah.
Okay, so that's
And
possible.
that's what we may be. if
That's
we
something
wanna-
to consider.
Yeah, but I'm based, and I think the human condition is. But if people have had to have some sort of understanding of what's it about. I don't think a crocodile has that kind of a consideration.
Well, let me ask you another question.
Nor
You know-
do I think a whale does.
I
or-
think they do actually have
I
bigger
don't
brains
think
than
they-
human beings.
Well, they've got.
I mean, whales do
got
at least.
instinctual things that are really amazing, and the whole
Instinct-
process is very amazing. And it's amazing that there would emerge out of all that.
Right. Let
the
me ask you
Homo
another
sapien
question.
Species.
Exactly. They didn't emerge.
When
They were
did that
parallel. But let me ask you another question. I want to just tell people Harold was one of the...
They weren't parallel. There were things before us.
Right, and those were the whales and the dolphins. Actually, dolphin means brother, Delphi.
Yeah.
Cetacean.
Yeah.
But do you know, those people watching, that Harold interviewed Jane Roberts?
Oh, she was my dear friend.
How do you explain
there was one Christmas
a spirit coming into her, taking over her body, and using a different, and being a whole different personality?
I could share it with people who believe in this kind of thing and everything. I had a friend who did when I was doing cable television very early and everything. Jane Roberts up in Elmira.
How do you explain her phenomenon?
Is it Butts or
Butts?
Butts is her husband. Nice guy.
How do you explain that phenomenon?
My friend went and had me go there because he believed in I think he went off into Scientology or something. Anyway, he was believing in consciousness and all that.
Right.
And he said, "Let's go do a program with a bigger forces."
Okay. And how do you?
So I went. I'm describing something that happened way the hell back in what, 74 or something.
Okay.
And we drove to Elmira and we went to the house, their house.
Okay.
And
what you saw
we just knocked on the door.
And this being said...
Well, let me talk. You keep interrupting.
Sure, go ahead.
So it's Jane Roberts. Isn't she a great figure to a lot of people?
She is a great figure.
A lot of people who believe in the Seth material.
I think it's one of the really great material out there.
Anyway, Jane Roberts. One year, a very dank, dismal Christmas when things were... Did you ever have a dank, dismal Christmas? I had one. And I think maybe just about the only Christmas card I got was a very loving card from Jane.
Well, how do you...
Jane and I were friends.
No, but how do you explain the phenomenon?
I'm just telling you what happened.
I know, but
so we knock on the door, and there's Jane. And Jane Roberts, for those who may not be familiar with, as well as those who are, she is a person who claimed to have go into a trance-like state where another being from another realm would come through her. And my friend was all wrapped up in it. And there was a lot of wisdom school type
how do you explain
talking and everything that was they called Seth Speaks, I think was the name of the book.
Incredible material. The Nature of Personal Reality is a great book.
Oh, she really all did. So anyway, I'm trying to tell you something without being interrupted by the peanut gallery.
Go ahead.
My daddy used to say, "Let there not be any more noise from the peanut gallery." He meant the little kids.
All right, I'm a little kid.
Who were getting in his way with his
go ahead. Just tell the story. Go ahead.
Well, we did. It was quite a story because that's part of the consciousness. And so I just went and everything, and I'm not in that at all. But anyway, my friend was, and I love my friend, really great. And so we go there, and there was Jane, and she was wonderful. And we started talking to her and Bob, Robert, her thing,
Robert,
her husband, and we got talking, got along fine. We just hit it off right away and everything. And she said, "Well, listen, you guys are here in Elmira. As it happens, we're going to have a gathering of people here, a couple dozen people or so. We're going to come to the house. It's a regular house, and everything. So why don't you just go off to Howard Johnson, have a hamburger or something, come back." And so we did. We went back, and there were all these people sitting around. And Jane, and I get along with people.
I know you do.
We became really good friends.
Okay.
Jane.
Yeah, Jane's great.
Jane was wonderful.
Jane
was wonderful. So I'm sitting there, and this you're going to like maybe because
I think I will.
Sitting there, and there are all these people sitting around worshiping. You know how they do. Those people that are like thinking that way. Yeah. Right. Almighty. Anyway, and she's sitting there, and she's saying. Yes, and I'm sitting there off to this. I'm there, and she says he's come here, and she's going and she's talking in her way. Jane, she had a very nice voice, and all of a sudden in that living room, all of a sudden in Elmira, all of a sudden, and this is what she claimed is the way it happened. She all of a sudden she says, and this voice comes out. It was very feminine.
Jane was very feminine.
Very feminine,
and the voice comes out.
It shows so wonderfully. Put together intellectually.
Okay, and then the voice
and this boy, and all of a sudden there came out of her mouth, "Good evening. I am Seth from the 16th century or 18th century," and it scared the daylights out. It was so boom.
And how do you explain it?
Well, she was really.
How do you explain that phenomenon? I'll give you 3 explanations.
There's some actors who sometimes have done
Do you think
that,
she was acting?
No, not at
Okay,
all.
good.
Not at all.
Do you think she was crazy?
No, not at all.
So what's the other
I don't know. It
was one other possibility.
Like schizophrenia.
No, there's
well, I've said it all in psychological terms.
I know,
yeah.
but maybe there's something beyond psychology.
Yeah, well.
So either Jane Roberts was crazy, either she was acting, or the third possibility is
it's real.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
that they're talking from another level of consciousness. I never believed any of that, and I used to
But
tell
you
her, I don't
saw
believe
it.
any of that.
And what did she say to you?
And my friend wrote everything in the books that she wrote and everything. And I just told her I don't know what it is.
And what did she say when you said you didn't believe it? What was Jane's response?
She just said it doesn't matter to her. You know, I didn't dare talk to Seth. As she's talking like she's Seth. And out of her mouth is coming all these words about consciousness and everything like that. And people really had great
news
faith
for
in
you.
And she was my dear friend. I became
Right, so
very
she wasn't
friendly
crazy.
with her.
She was a very
and I
nice
liked Bob Butts.
So she was a great person.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be acting to con people.
Yeah.
Perhaps, and this is a leap everyone has to make at some point.
Well, I didn't make the leap.
leap maybe in some
and
lifetime.
I told her I didn't make the leap.
And
I never
maybe
said, I don't know, some psychological crazy thing. There is an unconscious
So you called her crazy?
No, I didn't call her
Let's say...
You put words in my mouth.
No, you said it was some psychological, crazy, schizophrenic thing.
You got
saying,
these ideas,
you said it.
No.
I'm saying
You're
that
trying
maybe...
to put a definition on something you weren't there.
I've seen people do that.
We had a thing between Jane and me.
I'm happy that you did have a thing.
I get along with you. She was my friend. I was really sorry when she passed.
Me too.
I was very sorry.
She was great. I've seen people do that.
But I told her all along I don't believe in anything.
And that's okay.
I don't believe in other levels. I didn't believe in Scientology.
I don't believe in Scientology either.
Was that finally proved to be a hoax?
I don't know, but I never bought that. No. But I do buy some things. Now, what Seth said, did any of that make sense to you?
The book said Seth, I never got into it much at all.
It was
not all gobbledygook about consciousness and all that.
So maybe
I don't go down that road.
Harold, I'm suggesting to you at some point
in some state of
at some point in your evolution, in your incarnations and your reincarnation, you might make a leap.
I don't believe in reincarnation.
I know you don't have to believe in it. It's fine. There might be some point where you leap into the metaphysical world. And when that happens, a whole door will open up for you.
Well, you got a consciousness. You got a conference coming up in a couple of weeks.
And that's all anyone talks about there is consciousness.
Yeah, right.
But you even used it when I asked you to define intuition.
Well, you browbeat me like some... you say it's like when I had to go in the Army, I didn't want to go because I just didn't want to go. But and I used to try and explain to the sergeants.
Yeah.
I got drafted.
You were
they used to have a draft.
Yes.
Yeah, it was Korean War. You had to go. I didn't want to go.
Right.
I don't believe in all that baloney about going to kill people or fight and salute and all this.
Right.
And I used to try and explain to the sergeants as a private that we could do things democratically. And they didn't want to hear it.
Of course.
And you remind me of my drill sergeant. But it is, it's like...
I wasn't insisting upon anything.
No, but you remind me of that.
I know, but
I've got the truth.
I'm not saying I have the truth. I'm not insisting upon anything. I'm just telling you my belief.
You're right, Sarge. Tell me what to do.
I'm just telling you my belief system. You can choose to believe it or not. I don't want to make people believe anything.
Quite over. And listen, let's get rid of this talking about me. And let's talk about the conference. You got a conference coming.
The consciousness deals with body, mind.
It's going to be at the Pennsylvania?
It's going to be at the New York. No, but this year it's at the New Yorker Hotel.
Right down the same place.
34th Street and 8th Avenue.
Guess where I live? 34th Street and 8th Avenue.
It's right around the corner from Harold Channer's place.
I don't think I'll bother going.
It's about mind, body, spirit, which is the integration.
They'll be coming from all over the world.
They are. There's some great healers there. There's some great products there. I'm going to be running the Strange Universe panel.
Strange universes I have known. Yeah,
exactly.
No, that's wonderful. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be.
No, don't. You don't have to be sorry.
No.
There's a lot of things.
It's a lot good people. They're all good.
They're all good people.
Remember that? What's her name? Jeanette.
Jeanette.
Watson, we
yeah, I love Jeanette.
Jeanette, remember we did the interview?
There's healers there.
She was wonderful.
There are great
Absolutely
healers there.
Wonderful.
There's great psychics. There's great intuitives. There's great
and
products.
Williamson, somebody? Or Williams or something?
Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, she was there too.
She's not going to be there this week, but she was there that time.
People, and they got stars.
People claim to have been on UFOs, so I'm hosting the Strange Universe panel. That is Saturday at 10 p.m. and Sunday at 10 p.m.
Oh, you're hosting that, yeah?
There's two different panels.
The date.
The date is October 27th to the 29th.
So 27th is Saturday?
2017. The 27th is a Friday. I'm going to be there the 28th and 29th. William Arntz will be there, who helped create the movie.
27th is a Monday?
No, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. October 27th, 28th, 29th, 2017.
October 27th.
William Arntz, who helped create the movie called What the Bleep. Thomas John, who's an incredible medium. Have you ever interviewed mediums who can see dead people?
The only one I've ever remembered doing was Jane Roberts.
Well, she wasn't exactly a medium, but she was a channel. She was a great channel. Probably one of
channel and medium is different, I guess, right?
They are. Mediums deal more with dead, the people on the other, and channels talk more with higher dimensional, interdimensional.
To me, dead is dead.
No, but these beings are not necessarily dead. They're just different dimensions.
Yeah, well, that's...
channels.
Yeah.
Channels.
And I know people want to believe all that. Sure.
I know. I want to believe all that.
If
you tell me it's not true, Harold, I'll be very upset.
If they lived 20,000 years ago and people are dying, you got to have some understanding of it, for God's sake.
Right, but maybe it's true. Do you ever meet anyone who had a near-death experience? You ever interview anybody with that?
I've known quite a few. Yeah.
But maybe you think it's just a phenomenon.
No, they have different. It's a psychological condition.
So everything comes down to psychology to you, right?
Well,
it has to, right? Because that's the only way to. Now, if something is beyond psychology,
actually, you're now beginning to sound like one of the colonels rather than just a mere drill sergeant. You're now talking.
Everything's psychology for you.
Brigadier General, you know. I mean,
everything is psychology.
President of the world.
No, I hope I wasn't
Authority figure.
I hope I wasn't trying to force
Donald Trump.
No, please, that's an awful thing. But I hope I wasn't trying to impose my belief system on you.
You're claiming you're not trying to impose your belief system.
I'm just telling you what I believe.
You know what I have to do, among other things, in the Army? I had to crawl in mud. They make you crawl in mud.
Is that what this show is about, crawling through mud?
No, and you know what they got going over your head? Machine gun fire. And you're like a machine gun.
At least I'm not the mud, okay? Okay? All right, I think we're almost out of time.
No, we still got lots of time.
We do? How much time do we?
You got 8 minutes, yeah.
8 minutes. So
8 minutes, yeah.
What I'm saying is, I'm just giving you.
No, they're going to have a gathering. And
mind, body. I mean,
if
you go to this, though, you're not asked to believe anything. Just be open. I've just given you ideas that I'm open to. I'm not saying any of it's true.
Oh, yeah, right.
I don't know if it's true. I don't know if aliens are absolutely true.
But let's not be dogmatic that it can't be true. That's what you're saying.
Or it can be either.
Or even it can. You're right. Well, that's good.
I take that point of view either. I tend to believe, but
because you're really involved with a whole lot of science and the normal way of thinking.
That's right. I think science is a great gift.
The way that everybody thinks.
I think quantum physics, science have been revolutions.
There's some guy Lipton or
Bruce Lipton, he's a biologist.
Yeah, that was somebody you were in touch with.
Yes, Bruce Lipton understood
you do pay attention to science. And
I like science.
I know, and you're
Bruce
very
Lipton
smart.
says that genes can change.
Yeah,
they're not.
Right.
You don't have a destiny. They're called. There's a morphogenetic field where it allows gene expression to change from generation to generation. It's much more Lamarckian than Darwinian. So
the Russia connection.
I do think we're in an evolutionary upswing, and we're integrating science.
Thank you. Now you're onto something I'm really interested in.
Okay, good.
Because
I believe in evolution.
Well, that's good because that's something that.
What's our evolution? Where's it going?
No, but what I'm interested in. Let me just talk. It's hard to get a word in edgewise.
People have said that about you. But
what do you call it? A barker at a.
No, tell me about evolution.
What do you call it when you have in the autumn? You had a gathering in the old days.
An auction.
No, not an auction. People get together and go on a merry-go-round and everything. It's a carnival,
a fair, country fair.
A country fair, something. Yeah. Okay. But. No, I think that we're at a time of. I think the evolution. God, it's 10,000 generations we've had, as best we can judge it. You figure about 20 years a generation. And we can understand that. We come out of, I thought we came out of Homo habilis. I thought
where'd
for
they
a
come
long
from?
time they came, well, from things before. But it wasn't Homo habilis, apparently. It was Homo erectus. I was surprised.
Well, it doesn't
but
matter
we're
what
all
you call
African. We all come out of Africa.
I agree with that. I'm with you, but
And
I
we
do.
come out evolutionarily.
Can I
now,
add?
What? You keep interrupting.
Okay, go ahead. Go. I
So
thought you were interviewing me. Okay.
you come out, and that was about 10. There was, and it comes out about 200,000 years ago. They can put a date on it.
That's when humans began.
Yeah, out of Homo erectus. That had been there for some millions of years. They've been going, eating carrion or whatever. And then they did, and then we've had 10,000 generations, and they've had to live lives, particularly in a material plane, of, for the most part, of great desperation and horror. They had to eat carrion.
How did it go from Homo erectus to Homo sapien? What made that shift?
Well, that's something I'm interested in. How are we going to get from Homo sapien to something else that might exist? That interests me.
Well,
okay?
this is why I'm
that
talking
would be
about
the concept of universal mind.
That's
but I think
what
you're
I've
all
been
trying to jump the gun. I think you're all trying to jump the gun.
No, I think we're
I'm
being.
telling you what I think, not what you think.
I'm
okay.
just telling you I'm not agreeing.
I can't do it. But what happens is we got 10,000 generations. We're now getting, there's 100 trillion cells in a human organism. Every cell has its individual makeup, and together they make, in a systemed way, a person. So there's 7 billion, we're heading for 10, I think. We got to limit that. And so many of them have been so truncated in terms they can't eat. They have to watch their kid die. All the horrors of it. We're getting to where we can take care of everybody in a way like a jam session, where everybody is realizing their full potential. Wait a minute. They don't even come close to it.
I agree.
And you got the whole human society, and it's like a jam session. And you're going to get everybody. We got a capability of liberating or annihilating the human species in evolutionary terms with the weapons of extended consciousness. We have the ability to take care of everybody in a way we've never had.
Absolutely.
We can get them. And so you get the whole Homo sapiens species like a gigantic jam session reaching a certain point of synergistic resonancy that might introduce us to universal mind at a level transcendent speciating. We're going through a speciation process, but we're not there, and nobody's got an inside track on it. It's got to get the whole human society liberated, and it might introduce us within our time frame to a new level of being. We're going through a speciation process. When we get there, we can talk about it.
I totally agree with that. I'm in agreement. Our species, we are evolving as a species.
So that's all being done at a material level, at a real level, and a political level.
Let me just tell you that I think the speciation happens by opening up new neural pathways of thinking.
No.
I'm talking about biology.
You're trying to jump the gun.
No,
you're trying to abort.
No, I'm just telling you how I think it happens, the speciation.
Okay. No, you think no, it hasn't happened.
I think it is happening.
It's going to happen from the liberation of the human society.
It's happening
now. In the cards now. And we're born into that time. But
we're
not there.
It's happening now. Thank you very much.
We will know it after we get there, not before we get there. You're trying to get
it is
done
happening.
Ahead of time.
No.
Your pleasure. Alan Steinfeld and the conference.
Harold, thank you.
Thank you very much. Always good talking with Alan Steinfeld.
I hope so. I hope I've learned something too. I really like that last statement of you.
That's where we're at.
I really enjoyed that. We should have
started
there.
It's never mentioned. We're speciating. We're not just making
a
political
speciating.
Change. Okay, thank you for viewing. We're coming back tomorrow. Thanks for viewing.
Thank you, Harold.
Thank you.
See you at the New Yorker.
New Yorker,
October 27th, 8th, and 9th.
October 27th at the hotel.
2017. Look me up on newrealities.com. Look at my YouTube channel, youtube.com/newrealities. Thank you very much.
Talk faster, a little faster, a little faster. Get it. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. There might be a little.
A friend of mine is on the panel, Antoine.
Who? Antoine. I gotta go.